So now, you want to use a spindle sander to sand down to your line to get rid of all those rough edges that we left with the bandsaw. Okay, we won't do in the straight part too much, but we'll do just along your arcs. Okay, ideally I want you to stand at the front of the spindle sander, but just so we can show you the video a little better, I'll stand off to the side. Okay, it's spinning in this direction. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now if you come to it and it's kind of dirty like that, it's got some sawdust in it, you can take this cleaner, it's called crepe, and just hold it on there and it cleans the sawdust out. And you can do that periodically while you're working. So, just gonna put it in, and we're gonna try and have this radius of the spindle sander sand right down to our line. So take your time, keep it moving, don't keep it stationary. And let's get right down to your line. I'm pretty close to my line, but it looks like I have the bandsaw marks already out. Well, let's take a look. Oh no, I can still see one faint one right there and one there. So we'll keep going till we get to our line. There we go, that's what you're looking for right there, no bandsaw marks. So I'll do this side now. I'll turn so you can see it a little easier. Don't have your fingers over here, you'll sand them. Keep it moving, try and be nice and smooth, not a bunch of starts and stops. And if we look in there, we have all the marks gone and we can still see our object line. Now this straight part, I'll just touch a little bit on the spindle sander to just try and clean it up just a little bit. So maybe just one pass. Alright, so that's what you're looking for. Got rid of all our bandsaw marks, and we still have our perfect shape of what we're looking for. And obviously I would have done all of these at the same time, but just for the video I just did the one. But you would have done this one, relief cuts, then cut it, then sand it, and so on. And do both of them at the same time. And that's how you make that shape. Alright, so now that we have our legs made, then you have to make two pieces for your feet. So I'll just show you with one. But when you mill this, so this is 340 by 70 tall, so 340 long, 70 wide, and your thickness you want exactly the same as your sides, just like that. Then when your joint comes together, okay, like so, there will be a nice blend right there. You won't even feel any difference from one to the other. All right, so you've drawn this already to half scale. Now you're going to draw it to full scale on the wood. So best way to do that is get your compass set. We need a 40 mil radius. So we can set that to 40 mils. Like so. Double check it. Good, 40 mils. Now we want to find where your point goes. If it's 40 mil radius, just measure in 40. Make a square line. Then measure down 40 from up here, down 40. And where those two intersect, that's where the point of your compass goes. Take your compass point and make your radius. I'll make that darker so you can see it. And we'll do the same thing over here. 40. And then 40 down from the top edge, right there. That's where they intersect. Put the compass point on your intersecting lines and draw your arc, like so. And then we have to put the notch in the bottom. So the size for that is 80 mils over. So 80 mils. And 80 mils at this side as well. Mark a line up. Mark a line up. And that notch goes up 25 mils. Okay, so 25 mils from the bottom up to the top of the little notch. So, mark 25 here, mark 25 down here, connect those two, and that's what your layout should look for the feet. Alright, so now we have to cut our arcs and the notch out of the bottom. So our blade height or our blade guard is set. So when you're cutting this arc, just cut a diagonal and give yourself a line to follow. Don't guess at it. Right there, and then we'll do the same thing on this one. Okay, so we'll end up sanding down the excess. So we'll do that one first, and then we'll cut out the notch. All you have to do, just cut there, and then cut this one. That's all we have to do right here for now. We'll clean that up on the sander. So now for the notch, I want you to cut this one, number 1. So in that direction, right up to there. Number 2, right up to there. Number 3 is probably easiest starting here. A long, gentle curve up to this upper line, all the way along this line to here. So that's number 3 in that direction. And then number 4 is going to come back this direction, all the way over. So it's going to look like this. Number 1. And that's short enough you can back out. Number 2, nice and straight. Remember the bandsaw doesn't cut straight lines very good, so you're in control. Number 3 is a long, gentle curve. Up to the straight line, ease into the straight line. There's number 3. And then number 4 is finishing off the long straight line. Alright, we're over at the edge sander. Now remember the edge sander, you've got to be watching what you're doing here. This belt, the sanding belt goes in this direction, as you can see by this arrow up here. Okay, now that's really important. You want to make sure that when you're sanding, and we'll be sanding this arc, that the long edges are going in the same direction as your belt. They're pointing in the same direction. Okay? And then we'll be able to sand. If we did this opposite, like for this one, what would happen if we had our long edges going into the direction of the belt, this will happen. It'll get ripped out of your hands real quick, and your hands end up on the belt, which you don't want to do. So all we're going to do is the radiuses. We're not going to worry about sanding this with any machine. We'll just do that a little bit by hand because it's down basically an inch up from the floor. Nobody's going to see that, so we don't worry too much about that at this stage of your woodworking career. So we'll turn this on. Now I suggest doing this one first, and you'll see why in a moment. So I'll get that all the way over. Don't sand down here, we just want to sand here. Take it. Sand down onto your line. And got a little bit more there. And that's what we're looking for. Now, to do this side, like I said, we can't point that in there like that. Can't go have those long edges pointing that way. So what we have to do is we have to actually flip it over. So we're working blind a little bit. And then you take a look and you check. Okay, so I have to take off a little bit more down near the short end. So I'm going to kind of make a mental note of that. Down here. And it. And that's what you want to get to. All right, we now have to drill holes through our feet so that they can be attached to the leg. So we'll have a hole coming through here. So we measure in 1.25 inches. So So 1.25 inches. And over here, 1.25 inches. Draw a square line across. Like so. And like so. Okay, now we want to find the center this way for our intersecting line. So we have half of 34. You can do the math. There's your intersecting line. You want to get your drill set up with your countersink bit, and you want to drill in right to that angle. You don't want to go past there, just right to where my thumbnail is. So, put it on, get it straight up and down. Right to there. Keep it running, pull it out, and come back over here. And we need a new drill. Take that bit out of there. So you have your countersinks. Now we have to do what's called a through hole or a clearance hole all the way through this piece so that the screw can go all the way through. So it sticks out the bottom like that. All right, so all the way through. Right into that knot. Yeah, sure enough. That knot's very dense. There we go. There's our hole there. And then this one will go much more smoothly. Clean off that a little bit. So our holes are drilled through. Okay. And now what we have to do is we have to find the center of the foot, okay, left to right, and we have to find the center of the leg, left and right. So, do some math here. Measure this. Oh yeah, this is 340. So, right there. Draw a square line across. That's your center line, and you can even mark it. The way we mark a center line is a C with an L. Center line. Same thing over here. Half of 23. That's our center here. And then, when we go to line things up, we just line our centers up and we get equal overhang on the left and equal overhang on the right. So we'll go over to a vise and we'll screw this in place. All right, the easiest way to get this in proper position is to use a vise. A lot of students will want to just hold it by their hand and try and get everything lined up. Use a vise, then you can use your two hands for lining things up. So we're upside down, we have our center line there. On our foot, we have our center line. So we line those two up, hold it in place like so. Get a Robertson screw tip, install it properly. Put this on number 1 so you don't strip the screw. And if you want, you can change the clutch so it doesn't have as much torque. So go down to, I don't know, go down all the way to the bottom. We can always add more. Take a 2.5 inch screw, put it in there. 2.5 inch screw, put it in there. Now, you're trying to get this all nice and even. Okay, you don't want this. Okay, so you can go by feel. If you want to use a clamp, you could use a clamp as well. You should be able to do this, so hold it in place once it's nice and even. Put your screw tip into the screw and let's screw it in. There, that's as tight as we want it. That one's going into the knot area, so it's a little more dense, need a little more torque. There we go. And that's the dry setup. Now, what I always do is I always mark, and just force of habit, I mark the left side. So that's my left side, because I'm going to take this apart, and I don't want this over here because the holes might not line up. Reverse these screws out of here. Take this one out. Okay, take your glue and run a bead of glue. Again, you don't have to smear this, it'll smear enough on its own. Okay, bit back in if it fell out. Make sure your left side is to your left side. Poke the screws through a little bit. Put them right into the hole. Put it in place. Screw it in, but don't screw it in all the way yet. That's right to there. Now we have a little bit of wiggle room, so I'm gonna just make sure that's nice and even. Gonna hold it there. Tighten that in. Good. Now this one. There we go. And now we have a leg and foot assembly. And that's where we're going to get the other one to, and then we're going to route a nice shape on the outside edge. All right, so now we've got our leg and our foot glued together, and it's now time to route her. So we're going to put a nice decorative edge all the way along both the sides, here and here, but we're not going to do any on the top end or on the bottom. Okay? I like to wear hearing protection when I use a router. It's a high frequency and it can be a little hard on your hearing. So let's get started here. So I want you to actually bend your knees and look through the front window, and what you're trying to do is get the router bit to come down right at this corner. So you're going to put it down flat and you're going to come in, and then it's not going to come towards you anymore. Once that happens, then start going counterclockwise. So we'll go from right to left. We're going to go all the way around like this, like that, and then at this one you have to anticipate the end and you want to go straight off. Okay, so you want to go straight off here like that. You don't want to go like this and wrap around the corner. Okay, we want a nice flat bottom to the table. Okay, so hold the router nice and flat. Okay, don't let the bit touch until it's running. So we'll start it. There you go. And that's how you end up with a nice chamfer on the edge of your project. Okay, we're going to make the table mounting brackets. So on your project, they are this part right up here. They will mount to the leg, and then the tabletop will mount to the bracket. So the way we do this, we've milled our piece to the proper size. Then you're going to take your miter square, go right to the corner, put an angle on like so, and then at this end do the same thing. Just like that. So your miter goes right to the corner. That's all you really have to remember. Okay? So go right to the corner and they converge. They don't go in the same direction. They come towards each other. Alright, and then we'll go over to the miter saw and show you how to cut that. Alright, so we now have to cut our bevel on here. So we're not going to cut it this way, we're actually going to cut it on edge. And the way we do that is put it on edge, tight up against the fence. We have to change our angle. We're at 90 right now. We want to change it to a 45-degree angle. So loosen that handle off just a little bit. Push this button in, move this over until your indicator gets to 45 degrees, and it will index. It'll kind of lock in there. That's when you know you're in the right spot. snug that up. You don't have to reef on this. Now, the biggest problem kids have is they go, oh, that's not right, I'm gonna cut the wrong direction. Well, I'll show you how to take care of that right away. So this end's easy, it's going the right direction. So let's cut that one first. So get it all nice and lined up. Squeeze the material onto the fence. So you're kind of your hand's acting as a clamp. You don't have to slide this out, just leave it just over top. Start it, go straight down. Wait for it to stop. Okay, and we've now cut our bevel on there. Now, this saw does turn to 45 this direction, but what happens is when it's turned that way, your hand is too close to the blade. So we still want to cut this. Again, it's still looking like the wrong angle. Well, all you have to do is flip it upside down, and you will notice on the underside, the angle is the right direction. Okay? So when you bring it back down, line up right to this corner, and I'll draw this on, but I won't draw it with a square. The angle's going like that. So you get the saw blade set up right to the corner. Clamp everything in place. Wait for it to stop. And then you have your second bevel, and that's the shape of the bracket. And next we'll drill some holes in here. Now we're going to lay out the holes for the bracket. We have holes going in from the top, and we also have holes coming in from the bottom. So follow this layout really accurately. So we're coming in 9 centimeters from each end. I'm not worried about the middle dimension, okay, because you all make this different lengths. Okay, so 9 centimeters in from each end. So 9 centimeters. Draw a square line across there. 9 centimeters over here. And then we want to find where on this line the hole is going to go. We don't want it over here, we want it right in the center. So we'll measure that. So we have 65, so 65. I know what that fraction is. Hopefully you can't see it on the video. I want you to do the math. There's our intersecting line. And we're going to do a countersink there. But before we do that, we'll mark the bottom as well. So on the bottom, we come over from the beveled edge 1 centimeter. Okay, so 1 centimeter from there over to where our hole is going to be drilled. So 1 centimeter, and down here from 27 to 26, that's 1 centimeter. Draw your square line across. Draw your square line across. And then I still have that measurement in my head. Need my intersecting line right there. And I need my intersecting line right here. And I will not do the math for you. That's up to you guys. All right, and now we're going to drill the holes. So I'll get a scrap piece of wood so we don't drill into the bench. Get a countersink bit. And again, just to the angle. Right there. And right there. Then we have to do this side as well. And right there. So that's our countersinks, but still the screws won't go through that. So we have to put in a through hole, which is a 3/16 diameter bit. So hold your drill bit straight up and down. Drill in, pull out. Drill in, pull out. Flip it over. Drill in, pull out. And finish that off to both of your brackets, because again you'll need 2 of these. And that is a completed bracket. All right, we're at the point now where we want to build your table rails. So we have a lower rail and we have an upper rail, and that's going to join the legs together. Okay, so this is that scrap piece that I had from earlier. So it's already milled, it's already ready to go. I just have to cut it to length and width. So it's 30 wide by 36 or by 30 thick and by 400 long. So let's go over to the table saw and we'll cut two pieces at 30. All right, so let's set our blade height. It's a little high. We'll just knock it down just a little bit, right to about there. And you can see that's the piece that I had earlier. As you can see, the biscuits in there. So blade height set. Now go to 30 mils. Don't go to 60. Okay, 30 millimeters, and we're going to cut two. If you cut 60 all at once and then we cut them in half, they end up too narrow because the blade takes up 3 millimeters of material. That's what gets turned into sawdust. So we'll turn it on. Use the skinnier push stick for this one. Okay, and it will slide past here. Just barely, but it makes it. Left hand in position. Squeeze tight. There's one. You just have to leave with the push stick, not your hand. That over there. And then let's do this one. All right, so this is going to be our upper and lower rails, and that piece will eventually be firewood. Okay, let's go cut these to length, and I can't remember what the length is. All right, we'll cut these to 400 mils. We'll square off one end first of each. Give yourself a little check mark. That's the square end. I like to turn mine. Square off this end. Give yourself a little check mark. Now, measure 400. I believe that's what it is. You might want to double check that. And 400. And let's go. All right, and there are two rails, our upper and lower. All right, so I've gone through the whole process of the foolproof method of milling and how to glue up a panel. You know how we had our carpenter's square on here. We put biscuits in here everywhere. Okay, and it tells you this in the book, so you don't need to see it on the video. Now we're going to cut it to width. Okay, so set our size. We'll do width first. Check our blade height is good. So we'll cut this to width. It's already been planed down. It's just cutting to width and length right now. There's our width. Now we'll go to the crosscut sled and we'll cut to length. So again on this one, just make sure you're tight against the fence, and then we're going to straighten off one end. Okay, so I'm going to cover the groove up that the saw makes, right there. Okay, my blade height's okay from the last one I cut. Right hand, left hand. Right to there. Make sure when you're cutting with the crosscut sled, don't keep pushing the sled because you don't want the blade to come out here and be exposed. Okay, you don't want that. That's not a very safe situation. That's why I tell you to stop just once the blade goes through the top of the material. So there's our straight end. And now we have to measure our length and really get in the habit of marking on the edge, and it'll be much more accurate for you. So we're going to mark that. If you have a square, which I don't right now, mark a square line there. Put your X on the waist side. Back on the crosscut sled. Make sure you're tight against the fence and line it up like we have to on this one, just by eye. And let's cut to length. There we go. Now we have our rectangle. All we have to do, and I'll show you this in a moment, we're going to lay out our corners. We're going to round the corners off. All right, we now want to mark our 50 mil radius on each corner. So again, set your compass to 50 mils. And then I just do a little double check and we'll increase that just a bit. There we go, 50 mils. Now mark your intersecting line at each corner. So we'll mark over 50 millimeters. Draw a square line. Mark down 50 mils on this line. And where those two intersect, that's where the point of your compass goes, and make your line. There you go. Do that on each of the 4 corners. All right, now we're at the bandsaw and we want to cut our radiuses on. Remember, we're not going to cut on the arc. We're just going to cut a diagonal like so, okay, on each corner. It's going to be a little harder to balance because it's a bigger piece, but keep it flat. Don't lift it up like that. So I want you to do that to each of the four corners. All right, so we have all 4 corners, the diagonals cut. Now we want to sand down to our line. The important thing here is we have a lot of surface area. Make sure your right hand is here because this piece is going to want to come this way on you. So you have to resist it with your right hand, and your left hand is going to do the driving. Okay, it's going to just pivot that back and forth. So turn it on. Okay, get it close to touching all the way along. Then lean it in a little closer at this corner and start shaping it. Keep going. Get that way a little bit. To shift your hands a little bit. It's all by feel, a lot of it now. And right down. We have a nice corner. Clean that up a little bit where I left a couple of high spots there. There. And we'll blend it in a little bit. There we go. And do that to all 4 corners. All right. We're now at the section where we're going to start to assemble all of your parts that you've milled. You should router the top edge of your table just to make it a little prettier. I didn't bother doing this for demonstration purposes, but after you router your top, then you're basically ready to assemble. So we want to line everything up. We want to get our rails perfectly in alignment. So follow this layout guide on the in the booklet, and it'll help you a great deal. You have a lot of the answers here already because you've done a lot of the math. So we'll measure over to our center line and we'll transfer it up here. Square on. And so we have our 2 center lines established. So now from this point down, we want to mark that 15 millimeters down. I find it easier to do this, to drill these holes before I put the brackets on. And that's up to you. You can try it either way. And then 15 millimeters up from the top of the foot. So 15 mils. There's our intersecting line where we're going to drill the hole so that we can attach the rail in the center. So that's the center there. Then, since I'm on centering, I want to find the center of this, both left and right and up and down. Okay, so in this case, right there. Center that way, and then my center this way. Okay, and I want that on both edges and at both ends. So I'll just do my little quick technique here. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. We don't have to find the center there. We know where these two intersect. It will end up being the center. and that's where we want the screw to go into. So mark both your upper rail and your lower rail, and both your leg assemblies. Okay, once you do that, then we're ready to drill the holes. So we need a scrap piece of wood. And we're going to do a countersink here, and then a through hole here and here. Through hole. And then that's what you end up with. So do that to the other one, and then we'll show you how to put the brackets on and then the rails in. All right, it is now time to attach your brackets onto your leg assembly. So first thing we have to do is we have to find the center between here and here. So let's do that real quick. Yeah, right there, that's my center. I'm gonna mark that on the edge, and actually on the underside works a little better. So I'll put it on the edge so you can see it easy. But it's more important to be down here. Like that. Okay, so that is going to be our center left and right this way, so that we have even overhang on both sides. Now on this one, which you haven't done before, we actually have to find the center right here and right here so that we can get it lined up so it's even overhang on both surfaces. Okay, so we don't want it all over to one side like that. Okay, we want it in the center. So, same thing, learn to divide by 2, makes life a heck of a lot easier. Here we go. There we go. Mark that, because this line you won't be able to see because the bracket will be sitting on top. So I'll just make your tick there so you can see it easy. And same thing on this side. Now that didn't mark very dark. I'll mark that so you can see it easier. There we go. Okay, so we have that established. So we have our center this way. We have our center this way. On this one, we only have our center this way. So now we have to find our center this way. So that's easy because the center's right there. We've already marked it where that hole was. And where that one was. Extend that a little bit, like so, and like so. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get all of our centers lined up. Actually, I'll show you that upside down just so you get an idea of what I'm looking at when I'm doing it in the vise. So basically, we're going to get this center lined up, this center lined up, and this center back here lined up as well. Okay. But I can't get the screws in, so I'm going to have to actually do it in a vise because I can't screw it in that way. So get everything lined up, your centers lined up in both directions. Okay, and take it, hold it in the vise. Now get your center lined up this way and front and back. Right there and right there. And just double check nothing moved on you. All right. Now, screw length. Everybody has trouble making, not everybody follows a plan to a T. So what you want with the screws is you want the screw, use the length of screw where the thread comes out about 5 threads. So if you look at this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one, far too long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have to pick the lesser of two evils. So we're going to go with the 2-inch in this case, not 2.5. We have that in position. Take your 2-inch. Make sure everything's still lined up nicely. And it is. Hold it in place, no glue yet. Set your clutch. And we will screw these in. And screw this one in. And that's all there is to putting the brackets on. So that's our dry fit. We do want to glue this, but that's our dry fit. So again, get in the habit. I like to mark the left side. That's my left side. I pop it off. See, now you can switch this around in any direction, but you always get it back the right way. So you don't want it that way. You want the left to the left side. Take some glue. Put a bead of glue down the middle. Again, you don't have to spread it in this case. We usually just have to spread glue when we're laminating. Poke the screws out, get them right into the holes that you already established, plunk it down, and tighten them in. There you go, and that is the bracket attached to the leg assembly. All right, we're now at the point now, we've got our brackets attached. Now we want to attach our rails. Okay, and again, we want that hole to have the screw go right into the center of the rail. So what you have to do initially is draw on some lines. Okay, you don't have to measure really. Right through the center of that hole, like so. And then same thing across this way. Like that, and like that. And then that way, when you go to line things up, you have center lines so that everything gets lined up and in the right spot. And again, if you want, you can router the rails, that's up to you. Okay, but you would do it before you assemble, obviously. So that's the lower one. The top one, we can't really get a square in there. So I use the ruler as a square. And I put it right up against the bracket. And I put the center line there. And in this one, I go right through the center that way. So then that way, I can get it all lined up. And coincidentally, they line up pretty darn close. And that's good. It's actually best to have this come right up against the bracket. It makes it a little stronger. Okay, so once you have that established, then this is where things get tricky, and everybody will do this differently. I like to use the vise. You probably figured that out already, that I keep suggesting it. I like to clamp that in, and then I'm going to drop this down until my center lines match up and down. Right there, like that, and like that. Then I'm going to take a screw, and I'm going to drive the screw in from this side over here. So I'll hold that in place. Oh, moved on me. Put that in place, and put the screw in. And again, I'm doing this dry. I'll add glue later. There's that one. Now, this one's a little trickier. Flip it upside down. Get it like so. Now you need to either lobby a friend or try and do this on your own. So I've got it lined up. I've got it resting against the bracket. And I'll put a screw in from this end, just like I did on the lower. Strengthen this drill a little bit. There we go, that pulled it tight. Now we're gonna go cross-curricular on you, and we're going to use this crazy thing called gravity to hold the next one in place. So it's just gonna go like that, and then we're gonna screw it in this way, and screw it in this way. Okay, once you have your dry setup, let me take a look, and then I'll see if you're ready to glue. Okay, so again, use gravity to hold this all in place. So get it up there, get it roughly in the right spot. Get the screws ready. Might be easiest to put them in. Line your centers up. Like that, and like that. And drill that in. Don't be alarmed if that rotates on you. You can straighten it out. It's not glued yet. This one, get your head in there to see where your center is. There we go. And screw this one. There we go. And then in a perfect world, it'll sit perfectly flat. This one sits pretty good. If it doesn't sit flat, loosen the screws off just a little bit. twist it so it sits flat, put some weight on it, and tighten your screws up again. Okay, once you get it to this stage, let me take a look at it. Don't glue it yet. All right, we are ready to glue. Everything's checked out. Everything's looking good. Back those out. Don't take the whole thing apart. Just do one at a time. So we're gonna put some glue on here. I don't know, about the size of a dime, something like that. Should be good. Maybe a little more on this one. Then again, remember, poke the screws through a little bit and find the hole. Plunk it down and screw it back in, and there we go. And then all you would do is flip it and do this side in the same fashion. Okay? And then we'll show you how to put the top on once you get this done. Now, we've got our frame put together and we have to get it mounted to the top. So again, we have to work with our centers. So let's find the length of all this. Well, let's do it this way. This will be a lot more straightforward. We'll flush this out. So it's flush on this end. And we're going to measure this distance over here. And in this case, we have 8 centimeters. So half of 8, I'm going to tell you this one, it's 4. Move this till it's 4 centimeters away. And this one will end up being 4 centimeters away. So that's centered left to right. But now we have to center it front to back. Okay, so I'm going to put a line here at my 4 so it's easy to line up later. I'm going to flush my bracket out right to the edge. Same with this one here. Like that. Then I'm going to measure this distance. I don't know what it is. Let's take a look. Oh, coincidentally, we have 4 centimeters. Half of 4. I'm going to give you the answer to that one as well. It's 2. Mark there, 2 centimeters. Move this over to 2 centimeters, 2 centimeters, and we should have 2 centimeters right there, which we do. And we had a line marked over here so that we had our 4 centimeters this way. So where's that line? There it is. Our 2 centimeters here. Now we're not going to glue the top to the frame. The reason being is that top is a bunch of pieces glued together and they expand and contract. If we glue it, it'll tend to crack, okay, over time. Due to the humidity and how dry the Calgary climate is, it'll probably shrink, and if it's glued and screwed, it'll tend to crack. Now make sure you use screws that are going to be short enough that they're going to hold on to this top, but they're not going to go all the way through. Okay, so in this case, I checked it a little earlier. We'll go with 2-inch. It's going to take it. You have to kind of sneak the drill in because it runs into the foot. Get it going. Hold everything in place. Screw that in. Leave it a little bit loose so you can move the frame around a little bit. Screw this one in. And then this one here. Up, and there is your trestle table, and there are a lot of skills that you use in developing this that you'll use throughout your construction career, and it's a nice handy little table, and once you get all your paperwork done, that'll be a credit for you. Good job.